In this section, what I'd like to do is talk about how we can go about optimizing our images for web delivery or really on-screen delivery. Even if you're creating something like a mobile application, something along those lines, you'll find that you'll be creating images based upon these three common file types. So the three common file types that we're going to be talking about in this chapter are PNG, JPEG, and GIF. Some people say GIF. I don't know what the official pronunciation is. I think you can use either or and you'll be fine. Nevertheless, what are the core differences between these file types? Well, let's start with the one in the center, which is JPEG. JPEG is used for images with a lot of tonal range, typically things like photographs. It's a lossy compression standard, and what it will do is remove pixel information from your image. And that sounds like a terrible thing, and in some situations it is. But remember, you're going to be presenting this artwork on screen, so you don't need the same amount of information within an image that you would otherwise need if you were going to, let's say, print that image. So the lossy compression gives you great results in terms of how it appears visually on screen with very small file sizes. So that's what JPEG is used for, images with a lot of tonal range. Then we have PNG and GIF, and these two formats somewhat compete with one another. PNG is the newer standard. It's one that gives you more flexibility, but you'll find that the GIF format is still pretty popular. So what does the GIF format provide? Well, what it will provide is a basic level of transparency. So if you had an image that had, let's say, a lot of brown in its background, but it was up against a white background ultimately, you could easily make that white background transparent. It is very limited in the sense that it doesn't support any types of shadows or anything along those lines. The color is either transparent or it isn't. It also supports a level of basic animation. In fact, a lot of the things that you'll see on the web, loading icons, things along those lines, are animated GIFs. Finally, we'll talk about the format that I have up here towards the top. It's PNG. This gives you far more control over how transparency is controlled within the compressed image. It also gives you the ability to work with various bit depths. So depending upon how many colors you need to accurately reproduce your image, PNG will give you a lot more support than, say, GIF. GIF is limited to a maximum of 256 colors, and oftentimes if you're working with GIFs, you won't even include that many colors. So you can begin to see how these three formats are different from one another. If you have an image that has few colors, maybe it needs a little bit of animation or some basic transparency, GIF will probably be the appropriate format. If you have something like a photograph, then JPEG would be the appropriate format. And if you had an image with quite a few colors and maybe some sophisticated transparency, including things like drop shadows, then PNG will be the appropriate file type. As you'll see throughout this chapter, oftentimes when you compress a piece of artwork, it's a judgment call. It's up to you to decide the balance between quality and file size. Fortunately, we live in a time where many people have much faster internet connections than they did when the web first came out. That being said, people also now will visit your website using something like a smartphone, and if they're on the go, their patience for graphics loading is probably diminished somewhat. So you still want a fairly speedy download when it comes to your assets for your website. So over the next couple videos, we'll explore how we can go about optimizing our artwork using these three file types.